there's a very controversial public figure named Jordan Peterson. He writes in his book that the serotonin, because he was talking about whether hierarchy is a social construct that humans invented or not. And he mentioned that even in lobsters, they have this social hierarchy. And when they remove serotonin levels in the lobster's brain, then the lobsters no longer have this behavior. And what he's saying, the critics say, oh, so you're saying that these, the social construct, like this hierarchy doesn't exist. Society's like, no, he's saying it's deeper. I'm saying that there's nothing we can do about it because it's so ingrained in our brains. Even lobster have the same behavior. It's based on these chemicals, right? And so he said it's going to be, the humans have to create super strong social construct to pretend that it does not exist, is what he's saying, as opposed to a social construct that invented it. Then we have endorphins. Endorphins is actually interesting because that's like the win state moment. Like you get to a win state and you feel, yay, I won. And what's interesting way this applied is eBay back in the day. In my literature, I talked about buying on eBay has a CD2 experience. You didn't just buy something because anyone with money can just buy stuff, right? You feel like you won. Like, yeah, maybe even overpaid by 10%, but at least you beat those 10 other bastards that were bidding against you, And so eBay in the early days, they recognized that, oh, this feeling of winning is what makes eBay more fun and more interesting and thrilling. So they had the whole campaign called Windorphins, and the Windorphins is defined by that feeling when you win on eBay. Yeah. Let's see if I can still find Windorphin commercials. Windorphins. This is like in 2004 or something.
Isn't the social dilemma? Don't they bring a lot of this up? I mean, people like Nir Eyal were a little. I seem to agree that they did it a little too much. It was a little too much dramatized, but they talk about these triggers in the social dilemma in the documentary.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of it that is about dopamine, and again, dopamine drives our activity, and the media portray. So there's even our work, right? We talk about. So some people say, "Oh no, white hat versus black hat. White hat is good and black hat is bad." And I constantly say that's not the case. There's the intention of the motivation, and that could be good or bad. It could, but then there's the nature of the motivation, and that's white hat, black hat, and it's not necessarily good or evil. It's how people feel, and the definition also. Some people say white hat means feel good, black hat means feel bad. That's also not the case. White hat literally just means you feel in control. Black hat means you feel out of control. But as in the case of Core Drive 7, Unpredictable and Curiosity, you could be really enjoying it when you're out of control. And if it's not too heavy, like you're addicted to gambling, you actually like this exploration journey. So
like a roller coaster? Is that like,
roller coaster, yeah, the roller coaster has CD7 and then sensations, which is the head in CD9. But if people are in it over and over and over again, it does wear off. So the nature of the intention of the motivation, right? You could motivate people to do great things, protect the environment, work, exercise more, spend time with their family with black hat motivation, or you could, motivate people to do terrible things with white hat motivation. In fact, some of the worst things that are done in human history are motivated by Core Drive 1, Epic, Meaning, and Calling, and usually also a lot of Core Drive 8, Loss and Avoidance. But a lot of people who do terrible things do believe they're doing it for a higher cause. So that's the nature versus the result. Now in social dilemma, all these things, I think it's really about them saying, look, these companies, they just want to sell you more ads. They just want you to stare at their screen more and more and more and more. And they don't care if it's more or not. They don't care if even their own company shows that if you just look at other people's amazing lives, you will feel depressed and you will have a higher chance of committing suicide. These companies don't care. They just want you to stare at these. They would even send that to you if they feel like, oh, you're no longer engaged as much on Facebook, let's say. They'll send you this thing that they know you'll be glued to. even if they know it'll make you depressed. So yeah, so the intention is terrible. And like I said, I always talk about opt-in and transparency, right? But some people say, hey, I'm on this program where I'm always like doing healthy activities and I just can't even stop myself, but I just want to keep like doing healthy things. That usually people are pretty happy with that. But you also want to separate how the media talks about things. So there's a lot of media, for instance, back in the day, they'll say like, oh, games are so evil. When kids play games in their brains, they will create this chemical that is the same as cocaine. And literally they're talking about dopamine. And so you can also argue that says, oh yeah, and that chemical that cocaine generates is the same chemical that comes out when you study hard for a test, you know. And but they just want to say like, oh look, it's like cocaine is like games. And so you also want to, when the media says things, you want to be able to differentiate the actual truth from it. Of course, game addiction is not good, but the way they phrase it just makes it worse than it is. Yeah, so I think a lot of things we can talk about it from the neurotransmitter side, and for me, you know, there are people who understand the engine a lot, all the neurotransmitters, but they don't know how to know the input output, like how to motivate people. And if I had to choose one, I'd choose how to create motivating environments and not know the black box. But of course, knowing both is very good too.
Oh, you actually went through a lot of them just now, but it'll be great to see a video. I actually reached out to her and spoke to her, and I told her about you, right? Because your approach to gamification, you've created a framework, science, whatever, on a level nobody else has. But love to see the two of you together and sort of continue what you just started in with all 8.
Yeah, I'd love to even interview her for OP. I actually just had an interview with Carlos, who's right here. He is a psychologist who used the Octalysis Prime a lot, and you'll see in the video when it releases, he talks about how it's solved a lot of issues that at least a lot of traditional models don't help them solve. So